Chapter 105. In the Black Field. Luo Qingtong didn't know what happened in the Tianyu Empire. After giving the antidote to Master Lu, she got up and left. Of course, the antidote wasn't given for free. Almost all of Master Lu's property fell into her hands. He had an extremely luxurious and spacious mansion in the Black Field subcity. The moment Luo Qingtong got the title deed, she moved in without hesitation. She had always been a person who didn't want to treat herself badly, who would want to live in an inn when there was a good place to live. She didn't want to be abused. But Master Lu really knew how to enjoy himself. Luo Qingtong looked at the huge white jade pool behind the screen next to the master bedroom. The first thing she did was to take off her clothes and take a bath. She had really had enough of these few days. The Black Field subcity was in the wilderness. Luo Qingtong found this place after sleeping in the open for several days. If Master Lu hadn't secretly changed her medicine at the auction house, she would have finished everything and returned to the inn to take a bath. Although he had been delayed for a while, it was still not bad to obtain such a residence. This huge white jade pool was formed by connecting the several side rooms next to the master bedroom together by hollowing them out. That Master Lu was also very elegant. The white jade pool was covered with pebbles. Around the pool, 8 huge beast heads kept pouring out hot water. In a short while, the white jade pool was filled with more than half. Luo Qingtong took off her clothes and stepped barefoot into the pool decorated with bright jade jewelry. For the first time she felt that Master Lu did the right thing by changing her medicine. Otherwise, how could she get such a good mansion? It should be known that the real estate in the Black Field was very expensive. Moreover, people who weren't in the Black Field couldn't buy it. Even if Luo Qingtong was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, she didn't have the qualification to buy real estate in the Black Field before she got the Black Field token from the Bloody Arena. She would often come to the Black Field in the future. Having such a mansion was simply too comfortable. However, she still had to find a way to change the servants in this mansion. Although Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid of Master Lu daring to do anything, it wasn't so comfortable to use other people. This was a bad habit that Luo Qingtong developed in her previous life. She generally wouldn't keep people by her side if she didn't have them by her side. It seemed that she had to go to the slave market tomorrow. In addition, she had to buy some people back to the Luo family. In Luo Qingtong's eyes, the Luo family's strength was not enough. After she finished with her business here, she went back to help the Luo family's strength. Especially the old man. Couldn't break through. Luo Qingtong knew that he had accumulated enough strength. It was just that in terms of comprehension he was still lacking that final step. She was going to stay here for a while to collect some elixirs to refine a congealing pill for the old man. Refining elixirs and refining elixirs were two different things. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was going to collect more elixirs to avoid any mishaps. While thinking, she stretched her body, comfortably half lying on the edge of the white jade pool, soaking in the warm pool water. She twirled the fruits on the plate beside the pool and tasted them carefully. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed. In the next second, her body flew up with the pool of water vapor. A muslin dress appeared in an instant, wrapping around her exquisite body. His black cloak fluttered in the air in an instant. It completely enveloped her body. Who? Luo Qingtong lowered her voice and shouted. Outside the room, there was a guard that she set up using her previous life's unique method. At this moment, his vigilance was suddenly triggered by someone. Swish. Chapter 106. Xianxia stared at the person in front of him, whose body was still covered in water vapor. The black cloak completely covered Luo Qingtong's figure. Not even a strand of her hair could be seen. Xianxia believed that with his abilities, no one would be able to detect him if he were to appear anywhere. However, it was obvious that the other party had discovered his tracks. Xianxia narrowed his eyes and sized up Luo Qingtong. When he saw the sinister Rakshasa mask on her face, he became increasingly suspicious that the other party was that woman. As for Luo Qingtong, the moment Xianxia appeared, she was already cursing in her heart. It was because she recognized that the person who had just arrived was the man she had threatened, teased, and even forcibly kissed on the Nine Magi Mountain. Don't ask Luo Qingtong how she could recognize him. She had her eye technique. Although Xianxia was wearing a dark gold mask, he didn't use his powers to cover his face. Luo Qingtong immediately saw through his mask and cursed in her heart. Why was this man everywhere? She actually met him again. Luo Qingtong was depressed. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't reveal her identity, she really wanted to grab this man and ask him if he really had a crush on her. Why is he always around wherever I go? Damn it. Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. However, she pretended to be angry and questioned him. Who are you? How dare you barge into my room for no reason? Do you have a hobby of peeping on others when they're bathing? Luo Qingtong's voice was old and hoarse. When she suddenly said these words, Bei Qing and the others felt a chill run down their spines. Who would want to peep on an old man bathing? This evil doctor was really old and unscrupulous. Yi Qianxian's expression didn't change at all. After being tricked by Luo Qingtong so many times in the Nine Magi Mountain, he was already somewhat immune to such tricks. He looked at the black-robed man expressionlessly. The other party's voice was indeed that of an old man. However, that woman had always been cunning. Before he could confirm the identity of the person in front of him, Yi Qianxian wouldn't easily believe a single word from her. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye? Yi Qianxian looked at her. With a wave of his hand, he took out the medicine bottle that Master Lu had given him. Did you concoct this medicine? When Luo Qingtong saw the medicine bottle, she immediately knew how the other party. That was Master Lu. Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. The other party had brought her a lot of trouble. If she had known that the other party was going to give the medicine to this man, she would have poisoned him on the spot and snatched the medicine. I shouldn't have given him the antidote in a moment of happiness. I should have just poisoned him to death. Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth angrily. The xuanhuan heart medicine that she had concocted was inspired by this man's holy healing spring. Because it was very useful, she had used it to build her reputation. Who would have known that this man was in the black field? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. That's right. This was indeed concocted by me. Now that things had come to this, Luo Qingtong couldn't deny it. She had already made a name for herself as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Denying it would only increase this man's suspicions. She could only deal with it as it came. What was going on? If she had known that this man was here, she would have run further away and gone to the black field of another country. Chapter 107. Thinking of all the things she had done to this man before, Luo Qingtong made up her mind that she couldn't let the other party expose her identity. No matter what, she had to deceive him this time. Did you come to this old man to refine medicine? Unfortunately, this old man only refined medicine based on my mood. This old man's bathroom has been broken into, so my mood is very bad. Please go back. Luo Qingtong flicked her sleeves and wanted to drive him away without saying anything else. She deliberately emphasized the word, this old man, her tone full of arrogance. She hoped that Yi Qianxian would have some sense and quickly scram. However, since Yi Qianxian was suspicious of her, how could he leave just because of these two sentences? He coldly looked at Luo Qingtong and ignored her words to drive him away. He only asked, where did you get the prescription for this medicinal liquid? His gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong's sinister Luosha mask under her black hood. He wanted to see if her eyes behind the mask were blind. However, this mask was specially made for Luo Qingtong, so he couldn't see her eyes and face behind the mask. Yi Qianxian wasn't sure if the other party was the person he was looking for. Prescription? Oh, this old man exchanged it with a little girl. Luo Qingtong knew that the main event was about to start. The other party was obviously suspicious of her, so he asked this question. At this time, it wasn't appropriate for her to say that she didn't know or anything else. Only by giving a mixture of truth and lies could he muddle his way out of this. This old man saved her, so she gave this old man this prescription. This old man saw that this prescription was very effective, so I refined it. What? You have a relationship with that little girl? But even so, it's impossible for you to get the prescription back. This old man obtained it through proper means. Luo Qingtong said half-truthfully. Little girl? Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes. If the other party was really an old man, then calling that woman a little girl was indeed correct. However, Yi Qianren suddenly took a step forward at this moment. With a swish, he grabbed Luo Qingtong. That palm wind did not have the slightest bit of offensive power, and its target was only the wide black cloak on her body. He wanted to see with his own eyes whether or not the other party was that woman. Holy-T. Luo Qingtong had been paying attention to Yi Qianxian's movements. When she suddenly saw him grab her, she subconsciously wanted to dodge. However, she quickly realized that the other party's target was her cloak. With this man's strength, she definitely couldn't dodge. If she really dodged it, wouldn't she be walking right into a trap? Wouldn't she be telling the other party that she was the woman who had raped him while he was injured on Mount Jianghu? Holy-T. It was true that if he stuck his head out, he would be stabbed. If he retracted his head, he would also be stabbed. Hiding was equivalent to walking right into a trap. Even if she could dodge this attack, it didn't mean that she could dodge the next one. Luo Qingtong could sense that there were other people outside the room. They were obviously very strong. Obviously they were this man's subordinates. If her identity was exposed, she definitely wouldn't be able to escape. She would be caught by this man at any moment. However, she didn't dodge. She had just taken a shower and didn't put on any disguise. She didn't wrap her chest and didn't draw any wrinkles on her old skin. Once he lifted her clothes, she would definitely be exposed. Why did this man come at such a good time? Couldn't he wait until she had taken a shower and put on a disguise before coming? What a scam. Seeing that Yi Qianxian's hand was getting closer and closer, Luo Qingtong's mind raced. The next second she gritted her teeth. I'll go all out. Chapter 108. With this step, Yi Qianxian's hand, which was about to reach Luo Qingtong's body, fell to the ground. Swoosh. The man's hand pressed against her abdomen. Yi Qianxian's expression suddenly changed at this moment. This was because he felt that his palm seemed to have pressed against something hard. He looked at the place where his hand was pressing with an ugly expression. The next second he tried to pull his hand back. But at this moment, a hand suddenly pressed down on the back of his hand through the cloak, pressing down on his hand that was about to retract. You're so annoying. So this is what you like. You should have said so earlier. This old man also likes handsome and imposing men like young master. Luo Qingtong's voice was still as old and hoarse as before. But at this moment, there was a hint of surprise and delicateness in this old and hoarse voice. Bei Qing and the others instantly felt goosebumps all over their bodies. What on earth happened inside? Why did this evil doctor's tone suddenly change? It became so hard to explain in a few words. Just as Bei Qing and the others were rubbing their goosebumps and feeling disgusted by Luo Qingtong's voice and tone, Yi Qianxian's face, which was hidden under the dark gold mask, twitched violently. Luo Qingtong's words were really too disgusting. Especially when she used such an old and hoarse voice. With a swoosh, Yi Qianxian pulled his hand back. Luo Qingtong did not let him go and chased after him to grab his hand. Don't. Young master, although this old man has always been the one at the top. But if it's someone like you, this old man is willing to submit to you, Luo Qingtong said delicately. She tried to hold back her laughter as she spoke. Oh my god, this is really too fun. Luo Qingtong felt that the man opposite her was about to explode, but she was not ready to stop. This was not enough to deal with this man. She continued, come on, young master. Now that this old man has just taken a bath and is naked, let's have some fun. As she spoke, she rubbed herself against Yi Qianxian. At the same time, he placed his hand on the belt of his cloak and was about to untie it. Yi Qianren pursed his lips tightly and the veins on his forehead popped out one by one. Luo Qingtong squinted at him. Seeing that he was not ready to leave, she suddenly pulled on the belt. With a swoosh, the black cloak instantly flew up. At the same time, Yi Qianxian's figure shot out without looking back. All that was left in the air was a voice so cold that it made people tremble in fear. Disgusting. If you're not disgusted, why aren't you leaving? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes and went forward to pick up the cloak that she had thrown into the air and then dropped to the ground. The young girl's body was exquisite and graceful. She was only wrapped in a thin layer of gauze. Her spring light was boundless and her charm was compelling. Where was the slightest bit of disgusting feeling? Because the gauze was soaked in water, it was still dripping with water. Luo Qingtong's feet were stained with water. The young girl stepped on it barefoot. Her toes were round and smooth and her nails were like pearls. Coupled with the fierce Rakshasa mask on her face, it was really bewitching to the extreme. If Yi Qianren was a step late or if she turned around to take a look, she would know what she had missed. But unfortunately, he was so disgusted by Luo Qingtong that he left without looking back the moment she lifted the cloak. Chapter 109. Phew. You scared me to death. Luo Qingtong heaved a long sigh of relief after successfully disgusting Yi Qianxian. This man is getting more and more difficult to deal with, she muttered in her heart. Previously at Nine Magi Mountain, she had made a casual gesture of wanting to kiss him and he had been forced to retreat. But just now he had only left after she took off her cloak. If she had hesitated for even a moment, he would have immediately caught hold of her weakness and exposed her identity. This man had evolved too quickly. What happened to the promised innocence? Luo Qingtong secretly gritted her teeth. However, she had completely forgotten that it was because of her repeated provocations that Yi Qianren's resistance to this kind of method became stronger and stronger. This man held great power and deterred everyone. Before this, he had never met someone as devilishly charming and unrestrained as Luo Qingtong. Who knew that she would have so many tricks up her sleeves? And each time it was different. Luo Qingtong was gloomy for a moment. Then, she thought of Yi Qianxian's expression when he had just left and was instantly delighted. It was too fun. Unfortunately, this trick could only be used once. If she did it again, that man would probably raise his hand and chop her into pieces. So, as she thought about it, she peeled the banana in her hand and ate it. That's right, the hard thing that Yi Qianxian had touched just now was a banana. Luo Qingtong had originally grabbed it in her hand to eat it. In the end, Yi Qianxian had arrived in an instant and she had hurriedly put on her cloak, but this banana had always been in her hand. If not for this banana, her true identity would have definitely been exposed by that man. That was close, that was close. Luo Qingtong patted her chest and finished the banana in a few bites. She threw the peel into the fruit bowl and got up to change her disguise. After being frightened by Yi Qianxian, she was no longer in the mood to take a bath. Who knew if that man would suddenly appear again? Luo Qingtong frowned as she thought. Fortunately, she was quick-witted enough to dispel his suspicions about her identity. The other party should no longer suspect his identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. However, if the other party recognized the origin of the medicinal liquid, they might send someone to follow her and find out her identity. She didn't know why this man was so persistent. Just because of that pig? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's face darkened. It's all that stinky pig's fault. At this moment, she was incomparably glad that she had not let the pig out of the 9-story exquisite pagoda to teach it a lesson. Otherwise, no matter how many disguises he had, he would be exposed in an instant. How did that pig provoke that man? Luo Qingtong thought to herself. She set up a few more defenses outside the room that only she could sense. Then, she raised her hand and released Little Pig from the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. How did you get involved with that man? Little Pig was completely black after being released. It was almost roasted into a suckling pig by the flames at the bottom of the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. Before it could catch its breath, Luo Qingtong picked it up and interrogated it. It was on the verge of tears. Piff. It opened its mouth and spat out a cloud of black gas. Then it snorted and said with a wailing pig face, "How would I know? He suddenly came and grabbed me from the immortal Slayer Palace's inheritance palace. He interrogated me about a bunch of things that I don't know. I said I didn't know and he wanted to kill me. Of course I ran away." Chapter 110. Get Lost. Luo Qingtong slapped Little Pig's head and sent it rolling on the floor. If she went to ask that man, wouldn't she be telling him, I'm the woman who made your soy sauce in the 9 Magi Mountain. The pig you want to catch is with me. It wasn't as if there was something wrong with her brain. Are you telling the truth? Luo Qingtong looked coldly at Little Pig who rolled on the floor and got up like a ball. You really don't know why he caught you? I think it's because of some ancient medicinal formula. Little Pig's beady eyes rolled around as he answered honestly. But he should ask that old man Tian Mingzi about this kind of thing. What's the point of asking me? I think he caught the wrong person. Little Pig said with a solemn expression. Ancient prescription. Luo Qingtong started to believe Little Pig's words. The injuries on that man's body were very strange. Luo Qingtong had seen all kinds of strange diseases in her previous life. However, this was the first time she saw such a strange condition on that man's body. The injuries on his meridians didn't seem like they were caused by someone. Moreover, there wasn't any trace of external energy in his body. However, the meridians in his body were breaking apart one after another. This was really strange. Moreover, that man didn't lack good medicine. Just the healing panacea alone was of a very high grade. However, it couldn't cure that man's injuries. It could only heal him temporarily and not cure the root cause. This was really strange. If it was said that he was looking for some ancient prescription to treat his injuries, then the credibility of this statement was still very high. Luo Qingtong thought about it and temporarily accepted Little Pig's explanation. However, she furrowed her brows. You really don't know about that ancient prescription? If I do, I'll just give it to that man. That way he won't keep chasing me. Especially since he was so strong, Luo Qingtong also felt a pain in the ass for getting into such big trouble. If the strength of the experts in this world was like a mountain peak, then that man who could tear a divine beast apart with his bare hands was like Mount Everest. She was being chased by that man every day. No matter how handsome he was, she didn't want that. Could she still cultivate properly and become stronger in the future? No. Little Pig said resolutely with a face full of grievance. If I did, I wouldn't have to sign a contract with you to avoid him. This feeling of being in someone else's control was really annoying. Why was I so scared by that man that time? Little Pig felt depressed as he thought about it. What? Are you feeling wronged? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and sneered at it. If it wasn't for this pig, she wouldn't be chased by that man. She still hadn't settled the matter regarding the immortal Slayer Palace. Little Pig looked at her, and the cold, bloodthirsty smile on his lips instantly withered. Who told me to choose such a master? I thought Luo Qingtong was young and easy to control. She also had some strange abilities that could help her avoid that man's detection. That was why I made a contract with her. But the result? I'll cry if I talk too much. Little Pig squatted there with its pair of little ears. Luo Qingtong did not bother with it anymore. Since I don't have that ancient prescription, I can only avoid that man from now on. Fortunately, she had spent more than 10 years in her previous life being chased and counterchased, so she had a lot of experience in this. In comparison, that man was just a little stronger and harder to deal with, but there was nothing else. Chapter 111. Yi Qianxian returned to the mayor's residence with a cold face. Bei Qing and Feng Yu followed behind him, not even daring to breathe loudly. Everyone could tell that Yi Qianxian was in a bad mood. They were secretly guessing what had happened in the room. However, what Luo Qingtong had said earlier made their imaginations run wild. The two of them kept thinking about it, and their minds were filled with all kinds of horrifying things. But how could their master do such a thing? But the evil doctor's words were indeed. The two of them kept thinking about it, and their minds were in a mess. Duo Jimin's mind was like that of Feng Yu, but he couldn't figure out what had happened in the room that could make their master, who could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed, so angry. Bei Qing felt like a cat was scratching at his heart. He hadn't seen the girl who had forcefully kissed his master on Nine Shaman's Mountain, but he had seen with his own eyes how angry his master was because of the evil doctor. His master's face had turned black. How scary. Ever since, he had never seen his master so angry. What was even more strange was that the evil doctor was fine. He was fine. They were outside, but they didn't even hear a scream. All they saw was their master rushing out of the room. But thinking about it, it seemed normal. Bei Qing suddenly understood why his master didn't do anything to the evil doctor. He thought about how he and the others had also followed after his master as if they were running for their lives. They didn't even want to look into the room, let alone touch the evil doctor. Bei Qing suddenly understood why his master didn't do anything to the evil doctor. They were already disgusted when they heard what had happened outside, so their master was even more disgusted. He probably didn't even want to touch the evil doctor, let alone lay his hands on him. His lips twitched as he thought about it. He had received news from the bloody battle arena earlier, so he was a little curious about this evil doctor with extraordinary medical skills. But now, this trace of curiosity had shockingly been shattered into pieces. He didn't expect the evil doctor to be such an evil doctor. An old homosexual dared to covet his master. However, Bei Qing quickly thought that, according to the evil doctor's words, his master was the one who had done something to him first. When Bei Qing thought of this, he was confused again. That's impossible. Her master would never do such a thing. But, if it was the demonic doctor who had ill intentions towards master first, how could he still be alive to say those words to master? Thinking of this, Bei Qing was horrified again. Just as his mind was in a mess and his thoughts were running wild, Yi Qianxian suddenly stopped in his tracks. Keep a close eye on that evil doctor. I want to know his every move and every whereabouts. Yi Qianxian's voice was icy cold. This was the first time, other than that woman, he had suffered such a huge loss. The veins on Yi Qianxian's forehead bulged as he recalled the audacious words the evil doctor had said to him. Even with his self-control, he couldn't help but feel the anger in his heart. If it wasn't for the fact that the evil doctor was the only clue he had that had anything to do with that woman, he definitely wouldn't have let him off so easily. He actually dared to covet her. Tut tut tut. The veins on Yi Qianxian's forehead bulged violently. The next second, he waved his hand fiercely, and the explosion destroyed half of the square outside the mayor's mansion. Then he angrily returned to his residence. As for Luo Qingtong, she was sleeping carelessly. In fact, she had dared to flirt with Yi Qianxian because she knew he wouldn't do anything to her. Otherwise, who would play with their lives like this? It was better to expose her identity than to court death. Flirting with carnivorous animals was very risky. But it seemed to be working well. Chapter 112. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she looked at the hidden figures inside and outside her residence. When she woke up early in the morning, she found that there were a bunch of powerful auras of unknown origins inside and outside her residence. These people probably thought that they were hiding very well. But in fact, under Luo Qingtong's eyes, their figures were as dazzling as fireflies in the dark night. She couldn't even pretend that she didn't see them. Forget it, she'll just treat them as free bodyguards sent by someone. Luo Qingtong ignored them and went straight out the door. She was going to the slave market to buy people today. It couldn't be helped. When Yi Qianxian and the others came yesterday, the people in her residence actually didn't notice anything. Luo Qingtong felt that she couldn't take it anymore. She didn't expect those people to be able to block Yi Qianxian and the others. After all, the latter and the others were powerful. But they should at least make some movements to let her know, right? Luo Qingtong didn't want to welcome uninvited guests in the middle of bathing in the future. If this went on, her identity would be exposed sooner or later. Lord Evil Doctor. When Luo Qingtong arrived at the slave market, someone recognized her and immediately reported to the manager of the slave market. The latter walked up to him with a chuckle. This Lord Evil Doctor was now one of the people who couldn't be offended in the Blackfield subcity. News spread quickly in the Blackfield subcity. Now, who didn't know that Master Lu of the auction house was greedy and wanted to exchange for Lord Evil Doctor's medicine? In the end, he was almost poisoned into a skeleton. It was said that even the 100-poison antidote pill of a heavenly alchemist couldn't cure the poison of Lord Evil Doctor. After seeing Master Lu's miserable state, who would dare to provoke this Lord Evil Doctor, who had first-rate medical and poison skills? They didn't want to die. Moreover, Lord Evil Doctor's refining skills were first-rate. In the future they would have to rely on her for many things. The manager of the slave market treated Luo Qingtong very respectfully. Lord Evil Doctor, what kind of slaves do you want to buy? We have all kinds of slaves here. We guarantee that you will be satisfied in all aspects. The manager of the slave market said politely. Yes, I want to buy a battle slave that can guard the house. I want the strongest one. Luo Qingtong was not short of money. If she wanted to buy a slave, she would naturally buy the best one. However, the strength of the slaves supplied by each Blackfield subsidy was different. Generally, they would not exceed the level of the experts of the country where the Blackfield subsidy was located. In other words, the slaves that could be purchased in this Blackfield city of the eastern border country were at most at the martial marquis level. Any higher and there was nothing left. This was also one of the agreements between the Blackfield and the 4 great holy dynasties. The 4 great sacred dynasties did not interfere with the matters of the Blackfield, but at the same time, the Blackfield could not destroy the balance of power between the various countries. This was a hidden rule that both sides were secretly protecting and abiding by. All right. Lord Evil Doctor, this way please. The manager of the slave market politely led the way in front. As he walked, he smiled and said to Luo Qingtong, Lord Evil Doctor, you came at the right time this time. We just received a new batch of goods. There are several martial marquis experts among them. There is even a peak martial marquis expert among them. They will definitely satisfy you. As the group of people spoke, they stepped into the slave selection plaza. The atmosphere here was very lively. There were slaves waiting to be selected and people choosing slaves everywhere. The battle slave that Luo Qingtong wanted to choose was on the other side. Chapter 113. The so-called war slaves were slaves that had been captured during the war. These people were tyrannical in strength and their bodies were strong. After being controlled by the Blackfield, they were absolutely loyal to their masters. They were very welcomed by those who entered the Blackfield. If Luo Qingtong hadn't come at the right time, the powerhouses in this group might have already been bought. A group of figures lined up in front of Luo Qingtong. There were nearly 100 people. Most of them were great generals and only a few were martial marquis level. Luo Qingtong looked at these people with extraordinary auras, but at this moment, their faces were numb and they had been reduced to slaves. She narrowed her eyes. These people, before becoming slaves, were all upper-class people of their own countries. These martial marquis powerhouses, which one of them wasn't the same as Grandfather Luo? They were the rulers of their respective countries. Or they were the martial arts geniuses of their respective families. But because of the war, because of the destruction of their countries, these once proud sons of heaven had been reduced to slaves, unable to escape the control of their masters for the rest of their lives. Life and death, they were all in the hands of their masters. Luo Qingtong looked at these people and inexplicably thought of the Luo family and Grandfather Luo. In the true Spill continent, the strong were respected. Countries stood in great numbers and battles were frequent. The expansion of the territory represented the expansion of the territory, and it also represented the increase of resources. Therefore, as long as a country or an aristocratic family lost power, there would immediately be a pack of hungry wolves attacking them, tearing them apart and swallowing them into their stomachs. For so many years, it wasn't that no one had the idea of attacking the Eastern Fence country and the Luo family, but because of the engagement between Luo Qingtong and Yuan Mo, they didn't dare to act rashly. Once the Luo family and the royal family of the Qianyu Empire broke off the engagement, then there would be so many evil people who wanted to attack them. But, as long as she was here, she would never let the Luo family fall into such a situation. Whoever dared to attack the Luo family and grandfather Luo, she would kill them. Even the Heavenly Emperor was no exception. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes as she sized up these people. Her gaze swept across the group of martial marquis experts standing at the very front. Suddenly she met with a pair of unruly eyes. He had clearly been reduced to a slave. Even the peak martial marquis had a numb expression on his face. The man standing in the middle of the group, whose strength was only at the intermediate martial marquis level, stood perfectly straight. His pair of beautiful and somewhat feminine phoenix eyes coldly looked at Luo Qingtong. That pair of eyes contained too many things. There was unyieldingness, there was forbearance, and the most obvious was the arrogance. Luo Qingtong looked at the other party's eyes and thought of the lone wolf she had met in the Gobi Desert. His legs were broken, his teeth were ground out, and his eyes were blinded. However, he still fought with his mouth wide open until the last moment and killed the lion opposite him. Even if he had to die, he couldn't lose his dignity. A person with such eyes would definitely achieve great things in the future. Unfortunately, he was now a slave. Slaves didn't have any room for advancement. Their consciousness had already been locked down by the Blackfield special method of control. They couldn't disobey their master's orders, and they couldn't break free from the shackles to advance. This was to prevent them from becoming too strong in the future, breaking free from the slave imprint's control and hurting their master. The person who bought the slave only wanted an obedient dog. But now this person, even in such a situation, was unwilling to admit defeat. Interesting. Chapter 114. I want all of these people. As she spoke, she walked in front of the man and lifted his chin. What's your name? Su. The man looked straight at the sinister Rakshasa mask on her face without the slightest bit of fear. On that feminine and somewhat overly beautiful face, there was an untamed look that was similar to the look in his eyes. Suyu? What a nice name. I like you. From now on you can stay by my side and serve me. As Luo Qingtong spoke, her lips moved slightly, and a faintly discernible voice drilled into the man's ears. I know your identity. My name is Evil Eye. Remember it. From now on, I am your master. Luo Qingtong used her own voice to say these two sentences. As she spoke, she cut off the chains that bound the man's hands and feet. Lord Evil Doctor. The people in the slave market were caught off guard. This Suyu was the only troublemaker in this batch of goods. He was extremely untamed. They were just about to give Luo Qingtong some advice, but they didn't expect her to take a fancy to Suyu and promote him to be her personal servant. But they hadn't handed over the control of the slaves to Lord Evil Doctor yet. What if this Suyu attacked her? The other party had already injured several trainers when he came here. He was completely out of control. A group of people quickly rushed forward to protect Luo Qingtong. At this moment, Suyu moved. Then, everyone watched in surprise as he knelt on the ground. Suyu obeys Master's orders. From now on, I am Master's man in life and Master's ghost in death. The man knelt on the ground. The untamed look in his eyes was still there, but the subservience in them was genuine. No one had expected this to happen. Suyu had submitted? He was famous for being difficult to deal with. Previously, they wanted to tell Luo Qingtong that if she bought these people back, this Suyu would be used as cannon fodder to break through enemy lines. He definitely couldn't keep it by his side. Otherwise, even with the control of the slave imprint, the other party would not be so obedient. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong would just casually say a few words and he would submit? Everyone was surprised, but Luo Qingtong didn't care. She looked indifferently at Suyu, who was kneeling in front of her, and said, Remember your choice. I won't accept betrayal. Suyu will not betray Master. The man kneeling on the ground said in a deep voice. Well then, get up and stand behind me. Yes. Suyu stood up and stood behind Luo Qingtong expressionlessly. From the beginning to the end, there was not a single superfluous word. Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. Coming to the slave market was the right choice. She didn't look at Suyu again. Instead, she picked up another slave. This time, Luo Qingtong wanted to change all the people in her residence, so she bought close to 1,000 slaves from all sorts of places. In addition to a small number of handymen, she also bought about 500 general-level slaves in addition to Suyu and the others. After buying these slaves, the money that Luo Qingtong won from the bloody arena was reduced by half. More than half of it was spent on Su Yu and the other high-level slaves. The money spent by the others was not as much as the martial marquis-level slaves. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but sigh. Buying and selling slaves, especially high-level slaves, was really a money-burning and profiteering industry. Okay, take it off. Chapter 115. Su Yu stood straight and firm in the room. His back was as straight as a javelin, full of the coldness of a soldier. Even his unbelievably beautiful face was as sharp as an unsheathed sword. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, he was silent for a moment. Then he knelt down in front of Luo Qingtong. Swish! Su Yu raised his hand to untie his hair, and at the same time he pulled off the outer robe he was wearing. Master is perceptive. Su Yu is a girl. His long black hair fluttered down like a waterfall, and Su Yu's beautiful chest bulged with white cloth wrapped around it appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. The half-kneeling girl's clothes were half taken off, exposing her upper body. The lines of her muscles were extremely beautiful, firm and powerful, but not bulky. That feminine and beautiful face was full of determination and arrogance. If it weren't for the bulge in front of her chest, no one would believe that she was a girl. Master, when did you find out? Su Yu's mood was complicated. She didn't know where she exposed herself. She had been disguised as a man for more than 10 years, and she had always been the face and pride of the Su family. No one had ever seen through her disguise. Even when she was sold as a slave, it was no exception. If Luo Qingtong hadn't seen through her identity, she wouldn't have surrendered so easily. She just didn't know how her master saw through her identity. You don't need to know this. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at her. You only need to know that from now on, I am your only master. If she hadn't found out that Su Yu was a girl, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have been so interested in her. A girl who wasn't willing to admit defeat in a pack of wolves. A girl who was sold as a slave, but still cleverly kept herself and her secrets. Luo Qingtong appreciated her very much. It just so happened that she lacked a personal attendant. She really liked people like Su Yu who had wolf-like eyes and a persistent spirit. Because such a person wouldn't ask too much, wouldn't think too much, and wouldn't do unnecessary things. At the critical moment, she would be the sharpest knife in his hand. Usually she was the least talkative guard. Most importantly, the other party's attire was compatible with both men and women. It was very suitable for him to stay by her side. Luo Qingtong didn't need people with high discernment around her. Su Yu met the requirements of the people around her very well. You will follow me from now on. Come here. Luo Qingtong extended her hand to Su Yu. The latter hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. At this moment she felt a buzzing sound in her mind. Amidst the intense pain, it was as if something had been shattered. Master. Su Yu's eyes suddenly widened. She could sense that the thing that was crushed was the control imprint in their minds under the Blackfield slave market. Master, she shattered the slave imprint in her mind. Why was that? Su Yu looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. Master, don't ask why. I just don't like the life and death of my people being in the hands of others. Blackfield had said that they would hand over control, but who knew if there were any hidden hands behind their backs? The Blackfield slave trade was spread throughout the entire True Spill continent. Every country had slaves produced by the Blackfield. If these people could be controlled by the Blackfield, then it would be a big joke. Luo Qingtong didn't dare to underestimate the huge dark sanctuary. She shattered the slave imprint in Su Yu's mind because she didn't want to leave behind any future troubles. She never trusted anyone no matter the means. Chapter 116. That's enough. You'll stay by my side from now on. Luo Qingtong's voice is indifferent. I don't care what your previous identity is, or what kind of hatred and background you have. But there's only one requirement for you to stay by my side. You'll be under my command and everything will be under my command and will. In the future, when your cultivation is strong enough, you can take revenge on your own. I won't stop you. But you're not allowed to have any selfish motives by my side. Can you do it? Luo Qingtong looks at her indifferently. The blood-red light in her eyes flickers little by little. If Su Yu answers with a single word, then her end today will be very miserable. But Luo Qingtong believes that the other party won't make such a choice. This is a clever wolf-like woman. She has the unruliness of a wolf, but also the wisdom and intelligence of a wolf. Su Yu's everything belongs to Master. Please rest assured, Master. Su Yu kneels down. She has regained her freedom, so she should have left at all costs. But the girl in front of her gave her dignity and freedom, and broke the shackles of being a slave. Suyu isn't someone who doesn't know how to repay kindness. She can also become strong by the girl's side. She can also take revenge. She's willing to offer her life and soul, just for the new life that the other party has given her. Very good. Luo Qingtong nods indifferently. The other party has indeed made a good choice. In the future you'll be in charge of everything around me. After those people from the slave market are sent here, you'll organize them into teams and patrol the residence. Oh, I'll give you a map. For the time being, you'll patrol according to the route on this map. When Luo Qingtong says this, it's unknown what she's thinking, but the corners of her lips curl up. That smile is really evil and wanton. If Yi Qianxian were here at this moment, he would definitely be vigilant in an instant. Because every time this woman tricked him, she would always smile like this. Suyu quickly took over the defense of the entire residence. Luo Qingtong's authority over her is very relaxed. Suyu didn't need to consult her about almost everything. She only needed to make a decision and then report it to her. Don't use people you don't suspect. Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid of Suyu betraying her. She was confident that she could control everything when Suyu betrayed her. Only the weak would be afraid of being overridden and deceived. The strong would always control everything in their hands. Suyu was also very worthy of Luo Qingtong's trust. She took good care of her mansion. She used to be in charge of an army, and those battle slaves were arranged in an extremely orderly manner in her hands. Very soon they began to patrol. However, those who were ordered to monitor Luo Qingtong suffered. The route drawn by Luo Qingtong was targeted at them. Ever since Suyu had arranged for people to patrol the residence, the people who came to monitor Luo Qingtong had been chased away like chickens and dogs. There was no other way. Those people were running towards where they were hiding. Originally, they thought that their identities had been exposed. But when they took a closer look, those guards were just patrolling and passing by where they were hiding. There was no other way. Those people began to change locations. This won't do. They were scared witless every time. But speaking of which, it was also strange. When they changed locations, those guards also changed their patrol routes. Every time, there would always be a few routes that coincided with where they were hiding. Gradually, those who were in charge of monitoring Luo Qingtong were made to complain incessantly, but there was nothing they could do. On this day, Luo Qingtong stood in the room watching those people in a state of chaos in the dark. She suddenly smiled and looked at Suyu, who was standing beside her. Chapter 117. Yes. It's the heaven and earth dragon soul herb that you need. The person sent by the bloody arena said that the other party wants to see you. He said that he will only take out the heaven and earth dragon soul herb after seeing you. Suyu's voice was cold and clear. It was very pleasant to listen to. Coupled with his firm and indifferent expression at the moment, he really looked like a handsome young master. He was beautiful, feminine, and heroic. Looking at him made people want to touch him. Unfortunately, this handsome and indifferent man was a woman. Luo Qingtong looked at him and shook her head. If this was known by others, it would break the hearts of many young girls. She suddenly thought of something and asked, "Suyu, have any girls pursued you before?" Suyu's voice suddenly stopped. Then he helplessly raised his head and said to Luo Qingtong, "Master, I'm talking business with you. So, can't you be a bit more serious?" Suyu also didn't understand his master. He thought that the other party's character was evil and cold, and would be very difficult to serve. But in fact, when he really got along with her, Suyu realized that Luo Qingtong's temperament was very changeable. Although she did things her own way, it was very easy to get along with her. In just a few days, the master and servant could already make some harmless jokes. Okay. Luo Qingtong folded her fingers and tapped them. "The other party wants to see me, right? Tell the people of the bloody arena that I will go there." Heaven and Earth Dragon Soul Herb. It was one of the antidote herbs that Luo Qingtong needed. The antidote herbs she needed were mixed in the list she gave to the bloody arena. If it was other herbs, Luo Qingtong would refuse. But since it was this herb, Luo Qingtong had to go there in person. After all, this was the first herb she found that could detoxify the poison in her eyes. Maybe she could find other herbs through the other party. To be honest, after coming to the Black Field, Luo Qingtong knew how precious the antidote herbs she was looking for were. In the whole Black Field, there were so many cities, but she still couldn't find the antidote herbs she needed for so long. She had collected a lot of other herbs. But for Luo Qingtong, those were just tricks. They were useless. The antidote couldn't be taken out by ordinary people. Ordinary antidotes and antidotes were very difficult to detoxify. However, The herbs used in the poison that she was afflicted with were incomparably precious. There was someone behind the royal family of Tianyu. Interesting. He thought that it was just a simple plot by a concubine's daughter who was jealous of the first wife's daughter. It would be enough if the royal family of Tianyu was involved. The person who took out the ultimate medicine and ultimate poison must have a very honorable status. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used so many precious medicinal ingredients on top of the ultimate medicine and ultimate poison. But it didn't matter. She had plenty of time. And one by one. Let's go. Luo Qingtong put on her cloak and ferocious Rakshasa mask and went out. Since she subdued Suyu, Luo Qingtong was a lot more relaxed. Occasionally she would show her real face in the room to let her skin breathe. Anyway, if someone broke in according to Luo Qingtong's arrangement, there would be a warning. Luo Qingtong had enough time to react. Yes. Suyu responded and followed her with a straight posture. Chapter 118. In the VIP room of the bloody battle arena, an old man was standing with his hands behind his back, waiting for Luo Qingtong's arrival. Suddenly he seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head to look somewhere in the air and smiled. Mingzun. If someone else was here, they would be shocked to find that the old man's attitude was very casual. He did not seem to be afraid of the Blackfield's supreme ruler. Obviously he was an expert on the same level as Mingzun. You can't touch him. Yi Qianxian's voice came from the other side of the air. This was clearly an extremely advanced sound transmission technique. His figure didn't even appear here. Oh, that evil doctor? The old man's voice was surprised. He did not expect Mingzun to send a sound transmission just to warn him not to touch the evil doctor. He's from the Black Field. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. He did not touch the evil doctor. Naturally, he would not allow anyone to touch him. After all, that was the only clue he had that could lead him to that woman. My lord, you've misunderstood. The old man smiled warmly. After that moment of surprise, his expression returned to normal. I'm here to see what kind of person the evil doctor is. He doesn't know anything about alchemy, but he can enter the pinnacle state and refine the supreme grade medicinal liquid. He smiled. I won't find trouble with him. It's just that I can't help but feel itchy when I see such a genius. Yi Qianxian did not say anything else. The intimidating aura in the air retreated. Interesting. I didn't expect Mingzun to value that evil doctor so much. It makes me even more curious. The old man smiled and talked to himself in the quiet room. He was looking forward to Luo Qingtong's arrival. No one had ever attracted Mingzun's attention. This evil doctor was quite capable. The capable Lord Evil Doctor, Luo Qingtong, pushed the door open and walked in at this moment. As soon as she entered, she saw the old man standing in the middle looking at her meaningfully. Luo Qingtong had goosebumps all over her body. The old man's gaze was too strange. The meaning of, I'm interested in you, was too strong. Could he be an old homosexual? She likes me? Luo Qingtong got goosebumps as she thought about it. She wanted to leave the heaven and earth dragon soul herb behind and leave immediately. Fortunately, the old man spoke up in time and broke the misunderstanding. You are the evil doctor? This old man has seen the profound origin heart elixir that you refined. You are not an alchemist, yet you are able to enter the extreme realm and refine such a transcendent medicinal elixir. This is truly amazing. He did not mention anything about Underworld Venerable. Since Underworld Venerable chose to speak to him in a place where no one was around, he naturally did not want others to know about it. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to say anything more. Luo Qingtong breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that he had seen through the mysteries of her alchemy technique. It was fine as long as he wasn't a homosexual. You flatter me. May I know the reason for your visit this time? As soon as Luo Qingtong's voice came out, the old man was instantly shocked. Then he looked at her even more meaningfully. It is said that the evil doctor's medical skills are extraordinary. I wonder if you can cure my injuries? He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at Luo Qingtong. If you can, this old man will give you the heaven and earth dragon soul herb with both hands. The old man's face was full of excitement. He did not look like he was here to ask for treatment. Instead, he looked like he was here to test Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong looked at his expression and the corners of her mouth twitched. Why was this old man behaving so strangely? But she did not care about this. She heard that as long as she cured his injuries, she could get the heaven and earth dragon soul herb. She immediately used her pupil technique to look at him. After looking at him, Luo Qingtong turned around and left. Chapter 119. Hey, little girl. Wait a minute. Seeing Luo Qingtong turn around and leave so quickly, the old man was caught off guard. The old man was caught off guard and hurriedly shouted. In a flash, he stood in front of her. You haven't checked my injuries yet. Just say you can't cure it. How could there be such a thing? No need. I can't cure it. Luo Qingtong said firmly. This old man was making fun of her. There were several violent and ferocious forces in his body, which were extremely destructive. They were wandering around in his meridians and bones. He had to rely on his own strength to suppress them. Although Luo Qingtong couldn't tell what level of strength the force belonged to, she could tell that it was not something an ordinary person could touch. If someone who wasn't strong enough touched it, he or she might be blown up into nothingness. In short, this old man was not an ordinary expert. The injuries on his body were not caused by ordinary people. How could Luo Qingtong cure it? It was not that she couldn't cure it, but she couldn't cure it now. The strength in her body was not enough. To cure the old man's injuries, she had to expose the secret of her pupil technique. Moreover, she needed several experts who were as strong as this old man to assist her. She had to go through so much trouble for a heaven and earth dragon soul herb? She even exposed her biggest secret in front of others. She was not stupid. Therefore, after taking a look at the old man's injuries, Luo Qingtong firmly replied that she couldn't cure it. No. You didn't check the injuries and said you couldn't cure it. I can't accept it. How could the old man stand Luo Qingtong like this? He wanted to give Luo Qingtong a good test. But he didn't expect her to do this to him. Who said I didn't check it? Seeing that he kept stopping her, Luo Qingtong frowned. She didn't want to be entangled with him anymore. She didn't need to expose her pupil technique. She still had a way to make the old man retreat. Your breath is deep and there is a sound of thunder mixed with some noise. It can be seen that the breath in your body is intertwined with a tyrannical force. Look at your palm again. Luo Qingtong pointed at his hand that was blocking her. Fingernails are greenish-black with a straight line upwards. Her skin was fair and loose. It can be seen that you usually take good care of your health. You are vigorous and full of energy. You protect and strengthen your body. However, he suffered a serious injury and suffered a powerful backlash. Now, he is completely relying on his own strength to suppress it. That's why your palms and skin look so old. If I'm not mistaken? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. You were at least 10 times younger than you are now? The old man's beard trembled. Luo Qingtong's every word was hammered into his heart. She had actually said it without missing a single word. It turned out that she wasn't just saying it casually. She really could tell that she couldn't treat his injuries. The old man looked surprised. Before he came, he had heard about how miraculous the evil doctor in the black field was. A bottle of medicine was able to bring the dead back to life and save a person who was bound to die. At that time, he didn't take it to heart because he had seen the medicine. It just happened to treat the other party's fatal injuries. It wasn't as mystical as the rumors said, that it could bring the dead back to life. But because of this, it had piqued his interest and he had specially come to see this evil doctor. He didn't expect that the other party's medical skills would be so beyond his expectations. Just by looking at him, he was able to tell how serious his internal injuries were from his external appearance. Chapter 120. He was already looking at Luo Qingtong in a new light because of Ming Zun's protection. Now that he saw her outstanding medical skills, he was even more excited. Good, good, good. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a face full of joy and smiles. Good. Little doll. I didn't expect your medical skills to be so good. You're right. My internal injuries are very serious and you can't cure it. His "you can't cure it" was different from Luo Qingtong's "I can't cure it." The old man thought she couldn't cure it. But Luo Qingtong knew that she could cure it. But if she wanted to cure it now, she would have to expose her eye technique ability and expose herself in front of everyone. She would never do such a thing. When her ability was exposed in her previous life, it attracted many people who wanted to kill her. She finally had a stable life in this life. She was determined not to expose it. Let the other party think she couldn't cure it. Yes. I said I can't cure it. Luo Qingtong said and was about to walk out. Wait. The old man stopped her and threw a brocade box to her. He laughed and said, although you can't cure it, it's not your fault. I'm not someone who bullies little doll. This heaven and earth dragon soul grass is for you. Yes. There's another thing I want to give you in it. I hope you can make good use of it. Little doll, the world outside is very big. Your talent is so good, don't waste it. He said meaningfully and walked out with a smile while stroking his beard. This is so strange. Luo Qingtong was depressed. She looked at the brocade box in her hand. Obviously it contained the heaven and earth dragon soul grass. But why did the old man give it to her? Just because she mentioned his injuries? Luo Qingtong frowned and couldn't figure it out. This old man had been acting weird since she came in, and he even called her a little doll. Wait. Luo Qingtong's body stiffened in an instant. Did that old man see through her identity? Damn. Luckily there was no one around. Luo Qingtong glanced around the room and used her Do technique to make sure that no one else had heard her conversation with the old man. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. It was not that she was nervous, but that man, the man she had offended in the Nine Magi Mountains, was also in the Blackfield subcity. Fortunately, there was no one else around when he met with the old man. Otherwise, his identity would have been exposed. This meeting was so secretive and short. No matter how resourceful that man was, he wouldn't know, right? Thinking of this, she calmed down. It would be terrible if that man found out. Luo Qingtong absolutely did not want to be caught by him. Although the other party's target was Little Pig was her lifeline. Luo Qingtong would never give it to him. As for himself, he had offended him so many times before. If he was caught, he wouldn't have a good time either. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong walked out of the VIP room with palpitations. What she didn't know was that several thousand meters away in the city lord's mansion, with a snap, Yi Qianren, who had been paying attention to the movements in the private room, crushed the Taotai paperweight in her hand. Little doll? Supreme Blackfield's face was dark and gloomy. Every word he spat out was filled with unspeakable coldness. That demonic doctor wasn't an old man at all. Was he that woman's disguise to deceive him? Thinking that he might have been deceived again, Yi Qianxian's heart burned with anger. Pass down the Supreme's order. Invite the demonic doctor into the mansion. Chapter 121. In the bloody arena, Luo Qingtong exits the VIP room and leaves with Su Yu, who is waiting for her outside the door. Just as the two of them reach the entrance, a black shadow suddenly pounces over from the side. Lord Demonic Doctor. Be careful, Master. Su Yu suddenly raises her eyes and blocks in front of Luo Qingtong. She raises her hand and slashes at the pouncing figure. Wait. Luo Qingtong finds the voice a bit familiar and calls out to stop her. Soon after, the figure pounces in front of her. Lord Demonic Doctor, please save my mother. I beg you. The figure is tall and sturdy. At this moment he is kneeling in front of her. The big guy is curled up like a shrimp and desperately kowtows to her. Luo Qingtong looks at him and frowns. Chu Lingfeng? Luo Qingtong recognizes the other party. Isn't this the blockhead that she saved in order to make a name for herself in the bloody arena? Save his mother? Isn't his mother dead? Asking her to save a dead person? If she didn't know that this Chu Lingfeng is a little silly, Luo Qingtong would have thought that the other party is here to ruin her reputation. I can't save the dead. You can go. Luo Qingtong takes Su Yu and prepares to go around Chu Lingfeng. She is a demonic doctor, not an immortal. What's more, even an immortal can't save a person who has been dead for several days. This Chu Lingfeng really knows how to find trouble for himself. When Luo Qingtong entered the bloody arena, she saw this blockhead kneeling on the side and falling asleep. She doesn't know how long he has been kneeling with his body covered in dust. She didn't expect that he was waiting for her. However, the dead can't be saved. It's useless even if he kneels to death here. No. Lord Demonic Doctor. My mother is not dead. She is still alive. They are all talking nonsense. My mother is still sitting beside me and smiling at me. She's not dead. Seeing that Luo Qingtong was about to leave, Chu Lingfeng took a few steps forward on his knees and hugged her leg. He said incoherently, Lord Evil Doctor, I know you are a good person. I was about to die in the arena and you saved me. The people in the arena treated me very well and gave me a lot of good things. I know it's all because of you. Can you save my mother? She was really dying. Her figure was already very, very faint. Lord Evil Doctor, if you save my mother, I'll sell myself to you. I'm very powerful. I don't need to eat so much, but I can do a lot of work. Otherwise, if you sell me to the fighting arena, I'll definitely be very, very serious. I'm not afraid of pain. You can break a few of my bones and I'll fight you no matter how heavy the injuries are. I can make you a lot of money. As long as you save my mom. Lord Evil Doctor, I beg you. I beg you. You have to save her. Such a big guy was hugging Luo Qingtong's thigh and crying like a child. He looked silly and pitiful, like a big dog that had been abandoned by its owner. Suyu couldn't bear to see him like this. She also knew a little about Luo Qingtong's fame. She knew that this big fool was about to be beaten to death at that time, and it was her master who saved him. So he was seriously injured in the arena to fight for others and earn money to treat her mother's illness? Although he was a fool, he was also a filial son. Master. Suyu looked at Luo Qingtong. Although the dead couldn't be saved, it wasn't a big deal for her master to take a look. Alright, go take a look. Luo Qingtong wasn't moved by Suyu's words, but Chu Lingfeng's words made her a little interested. She wasn't dead, her figure was becoming more and more transparent. The situation. Chapter 122. Master. This is the place. After receiving Luo Qingtong's approval, Chu Lingfeng was overjoyed. He automatically followed Suyu and called her master. No matter how she corrected him, he wouldn't listen. In his opinion, since Luo Qingtong agreed to save his mother, he was her person. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she heard this. Why did these words sound so ambiguous? However, although this blockhead was a bit stupid, he was loyal and pure. Luo Qingtong didn't mind keeping him by her side. Moreover, this blockhead wasn't completely useless. Luo Qingtong discovered that Chu Lingfeng's recovery ability was very amazing. She had just pulled him back from the brink of death a few days ago. It had only been a few days, but he was already alive and kicking. The huge wound on his abdomen had healed without leaving a scar. Luo Qingtong had never seen anyone with such a strong recovery ability. With some nurturing in the future, it wasn't impossible for him to become a capable person. The group of people walked into a dilapidated room. Inside there were only 4 bare walls. Apart from a bed made of wooden planks, there was only a tattered straw mat. Chu Lingfeng cheerfully rushed into the room like a big dog. He happily shouted, "Mother! Mother! I brought Master to see you. You'll be fine. You'll definitely get better." Chu Lingfeng was in high spirits. Suyu, who was behind him, frowned. She could naturally feel that apart from the 3 of them, there was no one else in the room. The middle-aged woman on the wooden plank bed in front of them was indeed dead. "Blockhead, your mother is already dead." Before she came, she thought that Chu Lingfeng's mother was really, as he said, not dead. But now it seemed that Chu Lingfeng's obsession was too deep, and he was hallucinating. Thinking of this, Suyu sighed. "Nonsense." Chu Lingfeng glared at Suyu. "My mother didn't die. She's sitting right next to me talking to me. You're not the master. You don't even know how to treat illnesses. How did you know?" As he spoke, he angrily turned his head to look at Luo Qingtong and asked, "Mistress, you can see my mother, right? She's right beside me now. She's not dead yet." Chu Lingfeng regarded Luo Qingtong's words as a precious jade. He believed that his master would definitely be able to see his mother. She must be able to save her mother's life. Chu Lingfeng firmly believed. "Yes, I can see that your mother is not dead yet." Luo Qingtong squinted at Chu Lingfeng's side. Beside him there was a faint, smoke-like shadow. Although the shadow was very faint, one could vaguely see that the outline of the shadow was Chu Lingfeng's mother. This was Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul. This blockhead didn't lie, his mother really wasn't dead yet. But now there was no difference between her and being dead. The soul detachment illness is really rare. Luo Qingtong walked straight over. Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul was unconscious, sitting next to Chu Lingfeng, looking at him with an indescribable love in her eyes. Luo Qingtong only took a glance and knew that the other party was in a very strange state at the moment. She seemed to be dead yet not dead, like a soul yet not a soul, like a ghost yet not a ghost. Luo Qingtong had only seen the introduction of the soul detachment illness in ancient books before, so her interest was piqued. Chapter 123. In Chu Lingfeng's mother's body, there was still a sliver of life. Sure enough, the soul detachment illness was caused by the soul being sucked out of the body due to certain reasons. Although the soul had left the body because the person's life was not meant to end, there would be a sliver of life left in the body. However, this sliver of life was very weak. If the soul of the person with the soul detachment illness did not return to the body in time, this sliver of life would slowly dissipate. Finally, it would completely disappear. Now, Chu Lingfeng's mother was in such a situation. The sliver of life in her body was about to disappear completely. Therefore, the shadow of the soul was so faint. However, since Luo Qingtong already knew what was going on, and knew where the sliver of life was in her body, she naturally knew how to treat it. "Give me your hand," she said to Chu Lingfeng. When the man heard this, he immediately stretched out his hand without hesitation. "Master, is one enough?" If not, I still have more. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she heard this. This blockhead, did he think that he was selling pickled pork knuckles? If one was not enough, then another? Enough. She only wanted some of Chu Lingfeng's blood. Men were yang by nature, especially Chu Lingfeng's body, which was full of yang energy. This kind of blood would be of great use to her next move. While speaking, Luo Qingtong held his hand and drew a line with her finger. In an instant, hot blood splashed out from Chu Lingfeng's wrist. Along with the blood that flew out, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and hurriedly drew a few symbols in the air. Then she suddenly raised her hand. Quick! Following her clear shout, those symbols drawn with blood instantly entered the body of Chu Lingfeng's mother. Then Luo Qingtong pushed the soul of his mother forward. The moment it entered the body, she fiercely bit her index finger and pointed at her forehead. Then she quickly drew an extremely complicated and simple rune on her mother's forehead. Sat. The moment the talisman was formed, Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul, which was about to be expelled from her body, was quickly pushed back and fixed in her body. In an instant, the lifeless woman lying on the bed regained her breath and heartbeat after Luo Qingtong's actions. His complexion slowly turned rosy. Although it still had a pale greenish-black color, it was still alive. All right. Withdrawing her hand, Luo Qingtong took the handkerchief handed over by Su Yu and wiped her hand. Then she said to Chu Lingfeng, who was dumbfounded, "Your mother is fine now. However, I can't wake up for now. I have to properly recuperate and replenish my soul power. After all, that soul had stayed outside for too long and had suffered too much damage." Yes, I know, Master. Really, thank you so much. Chu Lingfeng was so happy that he didn't know what to do. He circled around Luo Qingtong like a big wolf dog and almost rushed up to kneel and lick her. How could Master be so powerful? She must be a celestial being from the heavens. To be able to save his mother. Chu Lingfeng wasn't completely brainless. His mother's situation, so many people came and said that she was already dead. Even the Earth Stage alchemist in the Blackfield subsidy, he had spent a huge amount of money to invite someone to take a look. They all said that there was no hope for his mother. If it wasn't for the fact that he could see his mother by his side, he might have believed those people's words. Only Master. With one look, he knew that his mother wasn't dead. Master was the most powerful person in the world. Chapter 124. Su Yu, who was watching from the side, was also shocked. She had seen with her own eyes how Chu Lingfeng's mother had regained her breath. Could it be that Master could really come back from the dead? For a moment, Su Yu was also stunned. Luo Qingtong didn't explain to them. Even if she did, they wouldn't understand. For many people, Chu Lingfeng's mother should already be a dead person. But for her, as long as there was still life, then she wasn't considered a dead person. How did your mother become like this? Compared to the shock of the two, Luo Qingtong was more curious about the reason why Chu Lingfeng's mother became like this. One must know that the soul detachment illness wasn't an illness that appeared easily. For Chu Lingfeng's mother to be like this, there must be some external force that sucked out her soul, causing her to become like this. Luo Qingtong was very interested in this so-called external force. I don't know, Chu Lingfeng said very honestly. This blockhead didn't know what was called lying. He scratched his head and said, "When I came back some time ago, I found that my mother had become like this. As for the specific reason, I don't know." He said honestly, "But I heard from Uncle Lee next door that my mother fell ill. Not long after she went out with the team of the Chamber of Commerce next door to gather medicinal herbs, she fell ill when she came back. After that, she became like this." Gathering medicinal herbs? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. Are those medicinal herbs that your mother gathered still there? No. Chu Lingfeng scratched his head and said, "Those medicinal herbs were handed over to the Chamber of Commerce." Master, wait. When my mother came back, she was holding something and told me not to touch it. As he spoke, he quickly got up and wandered around the empty room. Then Luo Qingtong and Su Yu saw him pull out a small cloth bag from the corner of the wall like magic. Mistress, look, this is it. Chu Lingfeng excitedly ran back to Luo Qingtong with the small cloth bag. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and took the small cloth bag. When she opened it, she saw a black object that looked like tree bark. This thing's aura? Luo Qingtong raised her hand and picked it up. Master. Su Yu and Chu Lingfeng were shocked. Especially Chu Lingfeng. His mother had said that he must not touch this thing. If Master went to take it like this, would something happen? He was anxious and wanted to snatch the piece of black bark from Luo Qingtong's hand. However, he saw that Luo Qingtong raised her hand and crushed the piece of black bark into powder. I see. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light. She had just completely analyzed the black bark-like object with her eye technique. 1,000-year soul guiding wood. It turned out that this was the thing that had sucked out the soul of Chu Lingfeng's mother. It seemed that his mother's life was quite good. Generally, the soul that was sucked out by the 1,000-year soul guiding would be bound around it for eternity, unable to reincarnate. This 1,000-year soul guiding wood could be said to be the most evil thing in the world. However, for Luo Qingtong, this 1,000-year soul guiding wood was a rare good thing. As long as one could suppress its soul-sucking power, this 1,000-year soul guiding wood was an excellent treasure. It had a great effect on a cultivator's comprehension of the realm. Not only that, wearing it on one's body could also naturally nurture the cultivator's soul. There were all kinds of benefits. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong asked Chu Lingfeng about the specific location where his mother gathered the herbs and prepared to leave the city. However, before she could reach the city gate, she was stopped by someone. Chapter 125. In front of her. All of them were martial marquis realm experts, wearing the Blackfield's silver-rimmed uniforms. They stood respectfully in front of Luo Qingtong. Their outstanding momentum and unyielding figures showed their determination to invite Luo Qingtong this time. My lord. Hearing their words, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and thought. Mingzun? The supreme master of the Blackfield, the peerless expert? Why does he want to invite me? To refine medicine? Luo Qingtong's mind spun rapidly, but she nodded calmly on the surface. Okay, lead the way. No matter why he wants to see me, he won't kill me. However, Luo Qingtong didn't know that this was more important than her life. They came to the city master's mansion. Luo Qingtong was led into a magnificent hall by the attendant. Please wait here. My lord will be here soon. Luo Qingtong nodded and then looked around the hall. This should be the hall where the city master usually discussed matters. But now, it was used by Mingzun as a place to rest and receive guests. Luo Qingtong glanced at the high platform in front of her. Suddenly her eyes paused. Through her eyes she saw clearly that there was a stack of albums on the high platform. On the third album that was pressed at the top, there was a picture of a fruit that looked like a jasper. The core of the fruit was heart-shaped. It was crimson inside and covered with a layer of jasper on the outside. Heaven Heart Jasper Fruit. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up. This was one of the antidotes she was looking for. She had already got a Heaven and Earth Dragon Soul Herb. And this Heaven Heart Jasper Fruit. Then she would have 2 antidotes in her hands. In the future, if she had the opportunity to get medicinal herbs that could replace the medicinal properties, she might be able to detoxify the poison directly. Thinking of this, she began to calculate. If Mingzun had asked her to refine medicine, what were the chances of her asking for this Heaven Heart Green Jade Fruit as the antidote? Just as she was thinking, her eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a prescription under the stack of diagrams. Could this prescription be the medicine that Mingzun wanted him to refine? Luo Qingtong thinks about it and starts to read it. However, the more she looked, the stranger her expression became. By the end, Luo Qingtong's lips were twitching and she didn't know what to say. T. This prescription. Wasn't this prescription the prescription for the xuanhuan heart liquid that she had refined? How could Mingzun's table have the prescription for the xuanhuan heart liquid that he had refined himself? And it was so detailed. The required herbs and medicinal properties were exactly the same. In fact, he had even written down the medicinal properties that he had added and the medicinal herbs that he had replaced. How did these underworld venerables know? Other than himself, only that man from 9 Magi Mountain would know about this. Wait a minute. Luo Qingtong's body stiffened instantly. Mingzun. That man from 9 Magi Mountain. He had the same powerful means, the same undetectable power, and the same tyrannical power. Damn. Could that man from 9 Magi Mountain be Mingzun? This thought flashed through Luo Qingtong's mind and she was so frightened that her hair stood on end. Oh no, oh no. That man was definitely up to no good. He was disgusted by her just now. Why did he look for her this time? Could he be suspecting her identity again? Chapter 126. Of the 36 stratagems, leaving was the best stratagem. She'd better leave first. While that man hasn't come yet. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong quickly got up and was about to leave. At this moment, a figure exuding an indescribable power stepped in from outside. Where do you think you're going in front of this sovereign? Yi Qinshen's gaze was cold. Luo Qingtong turned around and met his cold gaze hidden behind the dark gold mask. In an instant she was like a prey being targeted by a hunter. A chill ran down her spine. This man was really starting to suspect her. It was different from the time when he came looking for her because of the xuanhuan solution. Luo Qingtong could clearly feel the difference. If at that time Yi Chenxian was only a little suspicious of her identity, then now it was 70 to 80%. Looking at the man's cold and penetrating gaze, as if he was hunting his prey, Luo Qingtong's body stiffened. Where did she get exposed? She was vexed in her heart. Luo Qingtong felt that her ability to disguise herself wasn't bad. Furthermore, when Yi Chenxian was disgusted and left, he had clearly accepted her identity as the evil Dr. Old Man. Why did he suddenly suspect her? Luo Qingtong sifted through the possibilities and finally gritted her teeth as she set her sights on the strange old man she met before. It was that stinky old man who exposed her identity. What do you mean by little baby? This man must have eavesdropped on it. Luo Qingtong thought of this and cursed Yi Chenxian in her heart for being a perverted voyeur. Did he dare to not pay so much attention to her? She thought that he was so disgusted that he wouldn't pay attention to her for a short period of time. She didn't expect his resistance to be so strong. How long has it been? He actually peeped on her again. Simply perverted. Luo Qingtong was depressed. If she had known, she would have been a little more hardcore. She would have made this man so disgusted that he would run away when he saw her. It would have saved him the trouble of thinking about her every day. She had gone too easy on him previously. Luo Qingtong thought for a while and gnashed her teeth. At the same time, Yi Chenxian slowly approached her. He lowered his head. His height of nearly 1.9 meters gave her a huge sense of oppression as he looked down at her from above. What's wrong? Not saying anything? I really want to know what other tricks you can play this time. His voice was cold. Luo Qingtong listened and cursed in her heart. I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve. If you have the ability, suppress your strength to the same level as mine. See how I play until you start doubting your life. However, although she dared to think this way, she didn't dare to say it out loud. The person in front of him was not someone to be trifled with. He had single-handedly created the Black Field, standing on equal footing with the 4 great holy dynasties. The man in front of him, even saying that he could summon the wind and summon the rain, was not enough to describe his valiance. Not to mention the other party's terrifying martial strength. Luo Qingtong thinks it over and over again. She still thinks it's better if she doesn't confess. Haven't you heard of this saying? If you confess, you'll be in jail for a long time. If you resist, you'll be punished severely and go home for the new year. Thinking of the more and more things she did to this man, Luo Qingtong felt that she had to resist to the end. Until the last moment, she would not give up struggling. Ha! Lord, this old man doesn't know what you're talking about? She closed her eyes and pretended to be ignorant. Chapter 127. Shut up. Hearing her mention that night, Yi Chenxian's expression turned even colder. Thinking about what this person did that night, the veins on his forehead popped, but he quickly suppressed them. It seems like you're going to continue pretending? He said coldly. No, Lord, I really don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong tried her best to make a final struggle as her mind raced. Oh my God. Who could tell her what she should do in this situation? How could she muddle her way through? Yi Chenxian pressed on, forcing Luo Qingtong into a corner, but she still couldn't think of a good idea. At this moment, the man's cold voice sounded. Do you want to take it off yourself, or do you want this lord to take it off for you? This was clearly a statement. It wasn't a question. Luo Qingtong looked at the man's face in front of her and cursed in her heart. What the F***ck, what the F***ck? Was there a difference between the two? She was still going to be exposed. Begging for a third option. Wait a minute. Suddenly Luo Qingtong thought of something. Hidden behind the Rakshasa mask, her eyes suddenly lit up and a blood-red light flashed through them. How could she forget that? There was a way. Lord, actually, this old man is really unbearably vulgar. My face is ugly and I'm as thin as firewood. I'm afraid I'll dirty your eyes. Luo Qingtong talked about this and that in a deadpan manner, pretending that she didn't know anything. Seeing Yi Chenxian's expression turn cold and impatient as he raised his hand to grab her, she suddenly shouted, Wait! I'll take it off. I'll take it off myself. As she spoke, she took off the Rakshasa mask covering her face. At the same time, her eyes flashed and she used the power that Tian Mingzi left in her eyes to temporarily restore her eyes. Whoosh! The mask was taken off. Yi Qianxian's outstretched hand stopped in midair. He frowned as he looked at the face in front of him. In the man's condescending gaze, what was reflected was a devilishly beautiful young man's face. When Luo Qingtong went out this time, she didn't disguise herself as an old man in order to let her skin breathe. How could she have known that the old man she went to see was such a scammer? Her identity was exposed in an instant. Fortunately, she had a backup plan. Otherwise, he would be dead for sure this time. All right. I admit that the High Lord has seen through me. How did the High Lord find out? Luo Qingtong deliberately blinked her eyes and asked Yi Qianxian. In order to see clearly, she even blinked a few more times. Look carefully. My eyes are fine. Yi Qianxian ignored her. He stared at her. The young man in front of him was devilishly beautiful. Luo Qingtong's face was originally beautiful. Now that she was dressed as a man, when her eyebrows were raised, it accentuated her imposing manner even more. Coupled with her mixture of male and female, devilishly charming and unrestrained temperament, it made her male disguise even more handsome and enchanting. If Yi Qianren's temperament was noble, elegant, and domineering, then Yi Qianren's temperament was noble, elegant, and overbearing. Luo Qingtong's youthful temperament was enchanting, devilishly charming, and unrestrained. In this world, there was a kind of elegance that had nothing to do with gender. When she was a woman, Luo Qingtong could turn all living things upside down and bring disaster to countries and people. When she was a man, she could still turn the world upside down and make countless men and women bow down to her. But Yi Qianxian didn't seem to see this at all. He looked deeply into Luo Qingtong's eyes. Chapter 128. Whoosh. He lifted his hand and grabbed Luo Qingtong's chin, pulling her closer to him. At the same time, he used his other hand to rub the corner of her eye. Following his movements, the light in his eyes flowed freely and naturally. It wasn't her. Yi Qianxian was disappointed. He was already sure that the evil doctor was that woman in disguise. But now, the other party was obviously a teenager and her eyes were intact. Yi Qianxian let go of his hand. At this moment, Luo Qingtong grabbed him. Wait. My lord, you haven't answered my question. Let go. Yi Qianxian's gaze was cold. After confirming that the person in front of him wasn't that woman, his last bit of patience was gone. If she wasn't that woman, she didn't have the right to waste his time. But how could Luo Qingtong let him off so easily? What the f***ck? This man was always suspicious of this and that. She was so scared that she was about to have a heart attack. If she hadn't been quick-witted and suddenly remembered that Tian Mingzi had left a trace of power in her eyes to heal them temporarily, she would have been caught. It would be strange if she let him off so easily. My lord. Luo Qingtong grabbed Yi Qianxian's sleeve so tightly that she almost tied a knot. You've been paying so much attention to me? She said shyly. Is it because you admire me? Instantly, Yi Qianxian paused in his action of shaking her off. Outside, Bei Qing and the others who were rushing over to report also stopped abruptly. Oh my god. What did they just hear? The group of people looked at each other in shock. Then they stood there with their eyes lowered and their noses lowered, not daring to move forward anymore. They were afraid that they would hear something terrible again. After all, there was only their master and the evil doctor in the main hall. Luo Qingtong also heard the commotion outside at this moment. She rolled her eyes and before Yi Qianxian could say anything she shouted, You're so annoying. My lord, don't be embarrassed to admit it. I know you adore me. Otherwise, why did you sneak into my bathroom in the middle of the night? Just a moment ago she kept telling me to take off my clothes. It's so embarrassing. Luo Qingtong was using her old and hoarse voice. Besides, other than Yi Qianxian, no one else knew that she wasn't an old man. She was going to go all out. See if you can disgust him to death. Bei Qing and the others outside were completely stunned by the shocking content. Master was really a homosexual. The one who broke it was actually that old evil doctor. Wait a minute, it was Master who wanted to do something to Xie first. Their hearts were filled with thoughts, but they tried their best to remain calm on the surface. Only they knew how turbulent their hearts were right now. Especially the Blackfield Castellan, who was standing behind Bei Qing's wind feather, was even more shocked. So this was the reason why the Lord urgently invited Xie into the manor. No wonder the Lord never let any beauties get close to him. So it was because he had such a strange hobby? Just as everyone couldn't help but fill in the blanks, Yi Qianxian, who had been shocked by Luo Qingtong's bold words, finally reacted. How dare you? Before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong had already rushed out in a flash. As she rushed out, she covered her face and wept. I know. My lord, you adore me. But after thinking about it, I still think that I prefer to be the one on top. Chapter 129. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she flew out of the hall with a leap. Damn you. If you pester me again, it means you want to be the next one. Let's see if you dare to provoke me again. Luo Qingtong ground her teeth as she quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Everyone watched this scene with their mouths wide open. Before they could react, Luo Qingtong's figure had disappeared without a trace. My lord, if you change your mind, you can come and find me, Luo Qingtong's reluctant old voice sounded in the air. When everyone heard this, they felt goosebumps all over their bodies. At this moment, there was a loud bang. In the next second, the most magnificent building in the city lord's residence was smashed into a pile of gravel. Xianxia walked out step by step, carrying a huge oppressive aura. Even Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had been by Xianxia's side all year round, were intimidated by the oppressive aura around him and took a few steps back. The two of them lowered their heads and didn't dare to breathe loudly, afraid that they would offend Xianxia. His master usually wouldn't vent his anger on others. But now, he was in an unusual situation. Only the city lord of Blackfield City Lord came forward with a bitter face and trembling with fear. My lord, there's news from the main city of the Jianghu Empire. He wiped his sweat, hoping that this news would appease his lord's anger. That demonic doctor was too bold. She dared to reject the lord. But the lord's hobbies were too strange. Of all things to like, she just had to like. Should he treat the evil doctor better or worse in the future? The city lord of Blackfield City Lord looked distressed. His forehead was full of sweat, but he didn't dare to wipe it off. Give it to me. Hearing his words, Xianxia moved a little. The oppressive aura around him was also slightly restrained. The news from the Jianghu Empire must be about that woman, which was worth their special report. Thinking of that woman, Xianxia could not help but think of the evil doctor. Thinking of what the other party had just said, he couldn't help but pull back his hand, almost crushing the letter that the Blackfield City Lord handed over to him. He took a deep breath, opened the seal and took out the letter. You found it? He looked at the content indifferently. According to the news from the Jianghu Empire, they seem to have found a girl who is very similar to your description. But whether she is the one you are looking for, we have to wait for you to confirm. The mayor of Blackfield wiped the sweat off his forehead and reported. That girl has been taken away by the Jianghu Empire branch. She's being taken good care of. We're just waiting for you to identify her. Okay. Xianxia crushed the letter in his hand. The description of the young girl's situation was indeed somewhat similar to what he had described. But he didn't know whether she was the woman he was looking for. If she was, then he could put the evil doctor aside for the time being. Thinking of Luo Qingtong, the veins on Xianxia's forehead couldn't help but bulge. Go and get ready. We'll leave the city tomorrow, he said in a low voice. Since he had found the girl, there was no need to stay here any longer. And he didn't want to see that evil doctor again. Yes. Bei Qing and the others answered and left. Chapter 130. AI. So annoying. She squatted outside a secluded courtyard, looking at the magnificent city lord's mansion in front of her with a gloomy face. Her heart was indescribably tangled. What do you think this is? She had been too excited just now and forgot that she still needed to get the heaven heart green jade fruit from the city lord's mansion. She thought that Ming Zun had come to find her to refine medicine so she could find a way to get the heaven heart green jade fruit. In the end, that guy came to find trouble with her. She finally got away, but she didn't get the heaven heart green jade fruit. If it was any other herb, no matter how precious it was, Luo Qingtong wouldn't take the risk to come back. But this heaven heart green jade fruit was the antidote to the poison in her eyes, so it was very hard to get. Seeing that she had only gotten a heaven and earth dragon soul grass after so many days in the Black Field, and it was given by that strange old man, she knew how hard it was to get the antidote to the poison. Damn it, don't let her know who was the one behind the original owner's back, poisoning her eyes. Otherwise she wouldn't let her go. She had to let her taste the torture that was 100 times more painful than gouging out her eyes. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong fiercely gritted her teeth, then stood up and said righteously, Okay, go. Isn't it just a man? I don't believe it. The city lord's mansion is so big, how can I meet him so coincidentally? It's just a herb, I'll think of a way to get it and leave. I don't believe I can meet that man again. Luo Qingtong thought and made up her mind. She took off the disguise on her body and stuffed it into the bushes at the side, then she jumped into the city lord's mansion. As the core of the Black Field, the city lord's mansion was naturally heavily guarded. However, Luo Qingtong's eye technique allowed her to smoothly avoid all kinds of patrolling arrangements. Plus, she immediately knocked out a servant after entering, so she passed through all kinds of sentries without any danger. The people in the city lord's mansion probably didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to sneak into the city lord's mansion without being discovered. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was able to enter the inner courtyard without any obstructions. She remembered that the album was a gift from the people below to Ming Zun. The Heaven Heart green jade fruit should be kept in the storehouse of the city lord mansion, waiting for Ming Zun to use it when he wanted. He didn't want to throw it away like that. In any case, that lord didn't lack treasures. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong felt more at ease. It was good that he didn't lack treasures. If she didn't lack it, no one would care even if she took it away. Luo Qingtong didn't want to meet that man again. She had already used up all her trump cards after 2 consecutive suspicions. If he did it again, she would really be exposed. Luo Qingtong easily found her way to the warehouse. At this point, she was in a difficult position. Not for other reasons, but the medicinal storehouse of the city lord's mansion was an important place, and there were experts guarding it everywhere. No matter how powerful Luo Qingtong's Do technique was, she couldn't turn herself into a mosquito and fly in. She didn't know where to start with this kind of guarding method. Luo Qingtong frowned and squatted on the tree for a long time, but she still couldn't think of a good idea. At this moment, she suddenly heard someone's voice. "Little Six, are you going to get the medicine for Lord?" "Yes." Outside, 2 young men dressed as servants were greeting each other. "You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.